Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
Welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to overcome our challenges, get empowered, and make our lives sparkle. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour. Jean Shipos is our guest today. And I met Jean through Toastmasters. In fact, Jean spoke at the 30th anniversary celebration of the Chester County Toastmaster Club, which, by the way, meets on the second and fourth Mondays at East High School. And if you're interested in overcoming your fear of speaking, public speaking, or you want to get better at it, like for meetings and things, I posted a link to the club's website on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. Anyway, when I met Jean Shipos at the Toastmaster celebration, I liked her right away. And then I found out she's a survivor of ovarian cancer, which, you know, is called the silent killer of women. She has such an interesting story of courage and persistence and victory that I asked her to come to Happy Hour today to share it with you. So Jean will be here shortly. And what a week, huh? The news couldn't be any more crazy. Between the hurricanes and the earthquakes, and that's just the stuff in Congress and on the football field, but also the natural disasters too. I've been watching pictures on the news about Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands. It's devastating. And then when I was thinking about the chain of events, geez Louise, it seems like Hurricane Harvey in Houston was a lifetime ago now. And that news got overshadowed when, just a short time later, Hurricane Irma hit Florida. And then I was on the phone a lot because I have friends in Florida. And listen, in fact, Christy Cavallo, you know, the psychic who joins us from time to time, she lives in Florida. And she did evacuate. And when I texted her, she was safe and staying at a hotel. So I was checking on people I know in Florida. Well, we barely got past that news when Puerto Rico was hit by Hurricane Maria. And listen, if you think about taking, like your pattern is to take a winter break in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas or someplace, I'm guessing you won't be doing it this year because they actually were hit harder they got hit by Maria, but they were actually hit harder by Hurricane Irma. But it doesn't matter. Like right now, all those places are wiped out. And when you listen to the news, and you see those people don't have electricity, it's just because you know how that is. It's awful. And help is going to the people, but I can't figure out why it's not getting to them. So those people are crying out for help, and they're ticked off. And for whatever reason, the supplies are going to those islands, but for whatever reason, they're not getting to the people. They just can't even seem to get electricity on. Well, if I was one of those people, I'd be ticked off too. And I remember, maybe you had the same experience a couple winters ago when a lot of us lost our electricity, and for several days, and some of us for almost a week. And do you remember nobody had anything good to say about PECO at that point? Because even though we knew the road crews were working 24/7 to get our power restored, it didn't matter. You know, when you're inconvenienced or suffering or, you know, whatever, that stuff doesn't matter. It was winter and we had no heat. Those folks in Puerto Rico, they have nothing. They can't run their refrigerators, nothing. But a couple of winters ago, if you were one of them and didn't have a generator for backup, you were stressed and ticked off. And now, compared to those hurricane-hit places, that it was nothing. But I remember I was totally stressed out. I couldn't focus. It was awful. So I've been thinking about those people, Texas, Florida, and now Puerto Rico and the islands. and praying for them. And those people in Mexico City. When I was in Mexico City, it was several years after the earthquake that hit them in the late 1980s. And there were still sections that were just piles of rubble years after the earthquake. So I cannot imagine how long it's going to take them to get back on their feet this time, because this is supposedly the worst to hit Mexico in a century. So, but I was thinking, it really makes you want to count your blessings, huh? Oh, and speaking of counting blessings, I didn't tell you what happened when I was on vacation. So, this is it. When Joseph and I drive to Maine, before we go, we take the car for an inspection because, I'm freaked out about that stuff like that. So, for me, it's like, who wants to have car problems on the road or on vacation? It's happened. I know it happens. It's happened to us, but who wants them? If you can prevent them, you do. Well, this year we took Joseph's car. He has a VW, and we took it to the dealership in Chadsford because they had to do something to it. And then we took it to the AAA here in town for a once-over, just to check all the fluids and everything. So because we were being diligent, I thought we were fine. So on a Thursday morning, we left for Salem, Massachusetts, where we planned to stay overnight. And Joseph took the first driving shift, and then I drove the second. So it's about a 6-7 hour drive. Well, that one, Waze lady took us forever, but it was usually about a 6.5 hour drive. So about halfway through my shift, while I was driving on I-95, I started to get this feeling that something was wrong with the car. I said something to Joseph about it, and he didn't agree. He thought everything was fine. So I thought, well, it's just me. It's coming down from work, getting ready to be on vacation. So we got to Salem safely and enjoyed it, and, we went on to Maine. But as we drove through New Hampshire and crossed over the border into Maine on I-95, at one point I was driving, whenever I hit the brakes, the car shook and shimmied. So then when it was Joseph's turn to drive, I checked the internet to see what it could be. And honestly, when I was reading stuff, on the different Google sites, I didn't see anything that indicated it was really serious. Stuff that I could wait till we got home. But you know what? I just couldn't shake that feeling. And then when we got to the cottage, the cottage we rent when we were up in the Bar Harbor area, we started our vacation. And, so now you're on vacation. We didn't drive much. We didn't drive very high speeds. And there was so much beauty at practically every turn of a corner in the towns, and certainly all around Acadia National Park. I mean, there's a sunlight dancing on the ocean and the incredible sunsets with blue and red, even teal streaks across the sky, providing an awesome show of above the miles of mountains. And hiking. We went hiking in fabulous vistas and hikes that I'm one of these people. This probably will not surprise you, but when I get to the top of a mountain, I stretch out my arms and like I'm embracing the whole world. And that always reminds me that I'm a victorious woman. So I think my nerves were slightly lulled into complacence until a couple days before we were supposed to leave. And that feeling started to become a siren in my head. And one night we went out to dinner with Ollie, who owns the cottage that we rent. And I asked him before the end of the meal, like, where do you take your car if you have a problem with it? And he's like, why? Do you think you're having a problem with your car? Long story short, the very next morning, Ollie took us to his car repair shop. And we found out that there was no cap on the power steering fluid. And apparently, going at the speeds we were going and the distance, apparently it blew a hole in some hose. The guy said we wouldn't have made it home without, at the very least, the car breaking down. But, and this is scary, he said it would very likely be that we would have had an accident. So a part had to be ordered, and, we were on our way. We got it taken care of before we had to leave. But I'm wondering, like, does that ever happen to you? And when you get those feelings, how often do you pay attention to it? There's a fabulous book that was written almost 20 years ago, and it's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And if you've never read it, you need to. It's good for everyone, but it's especially good for you victory chicks. And in the book, Becker talks about ways that people, ones who want to do you harm, can finagle you with the simplest of words and techniques. When I read it, I was shocked at how many of those things I'd experienced firsthand. And you guys, if you have daughters or granddaughters, you'll want them to read it too. And the biggest message Becker has is that if you have a normal sense of life, like you don't have a mental illness, and you get that feeling, pay attention to it. So listen, I posted links to the book, the audio, and the book he wrote for kids on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. And I wonder about feelings and illness, and I'm going to ask Jean Shipos about it. Jean has been battling ovarian cancer, you're not going to believe this, since 1997. Through all that time, Jean has worked at Educational Testing Service in Princeton, where she's currently a contract manager. And as a sister Toastmaster, we share the honor of being DTMs, that's called Distinguished Toastmasters. However, it was having ovarian cancer that turned Jean into an advocate that led her to becoming the founder of the TLT Foundation, which is entering its 7th year as a nonprofit organization. I invited Jean because, as I said earlier, ovarian cancer is the silent killer of women, and it is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And Jean can shed some light on that terrible disease and give you some good tips. So go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and come back for me and Jean Shipos. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and Jean Shipos is here with us. So, my sister Victory Chicken DTM, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I really appreciate it.
Jean, and that's always my pleasure. I was just talking about paying attention to those times when you get those weird feelings, the kind that could be like psychic messages. Did you ever get anything like that before you were diagnosed?
I sure did. I got those feelings. In fact, I was feeling sick for a very long time, and I mean like years, 2 years at least. But I did not pay attention to them. And I'm here to say to women listening to please pay attention to your bodies because, as you say, ovarian cancer is the silent killer, and primarily because we as women don't pay attention to it. We always put ourselves last. So we don't pay attention to it. We think we have the flu, or we think we're overtired, or we think it's stress-related, and we don't pay attention to the symptoms.
So what kind of symptoms were you experiencing that you later found out were signs of ovarian cancer?
I was exhausted all the time, exhausted. I just wanted to sleep. And that should have been a trigger for me, but I kept saying, well, I have 4 young children. I have a full-time job. Of course I'm tired,
sure.
Right? Wouldn't anybody be tired?
But you're such a powerhouse,
Jean. Stomach nonstop.
Oh.
Constantly sick to my stomach. And the menstrual cycle started getting longer and longer and longer. And I just didn't pay attention.
And Jean, you are something of an amazement because the rate of success for beating ovarian cancer is terrible, and you have been dealing with this for 20 years now.
I think there's good news and bad news in what I'm doing. The good news is that I have something called slow-growing ovarian cancer. So my ovarian cancer is very, very slow-growing. And though I continue to have the tumors, they're very slow-growing, and they're not literally killing me. Mm-hmm. The bad news is I have ovarian cancer, right. And I've been fighting it for so long.
Well, you were having all of these symptoms, and then 20 years ago, when what did you do? Go to the GYN, or did you go to the...
You know what happened? I read a book. I read Gilda Radner's book. For some reason, it came into my life. Her book, It's Always Something. Gilda Radner passed away from ovarian cancer.
Right.
I read her book, and it was an eye-opener, and I said to myself, oh, my gosh, I have all these symptoms. Something's really wrong here. And that's when I dropped everything and called the doctor.
And did you start with the GYN?
Yes.
Yeah. And so now, because you can't figure it out, like how did the doctor figure out that it was ovarian?
Well, I went to the doctor. He did a series of tests. He put me on a CAT scan. After the CAT scan, he said, I think we have something we really have to deal with here. Mm-hmm. And then we started going to specialists.
And what kind of a treatment did they give you at that point?
At that point, I had surgery. I had the full hysterectomy and the full surgery. My surgical oncologist felt that he had gotten everything, that everything was going to be fine. He felt we got it early enough that I didn't need treatments. I didn't even need chemo. So he said, just come every 6 months for checkups, and you're going to be fine long term. You look good. So that's what I did every 6 months. And then at the golden 5-year mark, when everything was going to be wonderful, when you have cancer for 5 years, or you're cancer-free for 5 years, that's your golden key where you think, if I pass the state, I'm going to be okay. I'll be in remission permanently. And at the 5-year mark, I started having the same symptoms. So, yes, I had to go back, have more surgery, and that's when they put me on the chemo.
And that was when you and I talked about this. I looked it up, and in fact I posted the Victorious Woman article about you on today's radio wrap up. It was in 2009, and you had passed through that time. But the big thing is, I remember having this conversation with Eugene, that when you had the chemo, you lost your hair.
I was devastated.
Yeah.
Isn't that silly? And I look back on it now and say, how silly. I lost my hair, but I had my life. But at the time, you just feel like you have no control. You totally lose control, and losing all your hair is part of it. And it's not just your hair. It's all your body hair. It's your eyebrows, your eyelashes, everything. Mm-hmm. So you no longer feel like a woman. You just feel so violated that this treatment does this to you. And not only, I had a combination of carbo and Taxol. It took me off my feet. It took me, nothing has ever taken me off my feet. This put me in bed. It was really, really difficult treatment.
And I remember you telling me about a lunch. You went out to lunch one day and you had a wig on.
I had a wig on, yes. And is this the luncheon I went to with my daughter? She was trying to cheer me up. She took me out to lunch one day, and we looked across the room, and I saw a beautiful young woman sitting across the room who was totally bald. And my daughter took one look at me and said, I know what you're thinking, and don't you dare. And I said, I have to. She's a sister. I have to go talk to her. So, of course, I went marching over and said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to know if you're on chemotherapy and, if you're going through what I'm going through. And she said no, she had alopecia. She lived like this.
Well, that was her natural.
That was her natural. Mm-hmm. And she just inspired me. From that day on, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. And I said, she lives like this, and she's stunning. And she goes out in public, and she doesn't even care. And I said, and I'm worried about something that's going to grow back.
And for a reason that will give you more years in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, it did. 20 more.
I know.
Thank God. 20 more I've had.
Are you still being treated, Jean?
Yeah, I am. I've been on and off all kinds of treatments for multiple years. Different chemotherapies, Avastin, which is sort of a hold drug. It's a drug that you go on, and it just sort of maintains your status. So you don't get better, but you don't get worse. The tumors don't grow. And then a year ago in January 2017, you may hear it, I started getting this really raspy throat. And they checked my throat, and I had inflamed vocal cords and, of course, a nodule on my throat, which I had to have biopsied. But they thought that maybe my oncologist thought that was a result of being on the Avastin for so long. So in May of this year, she took me off the Avastin, and we've been trying to build up my vocal cords again. And every single drug you go on has side effects.
Yeah.
And you just have to learn how to, what's worse, the drug or the side effect? What's your choice in the matter?
Yeah, that's really true. Like every single thing. There's no, like when you see those commercials on TV and they tell you how wonderful the drug is, and then the last minute they go through all of the side effects, and you're thinking, wait a minute, which is worse?
Right. And you see those commercials and you go, who would take that drug? Who would take that drug and go through all that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Jean, I probably told you, but I don't know that I ever told my listeners that I was having a GYN problem at some point, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And, they were going through, like, they started with STDs, and then they, were starting to rule out the different cancers, and they had sort of whittled it down to ovarian. Now, it wasn't, but I remember wondering what I would have done if I don't know that I would have fought it like you did. What are some of the things that you did that helped you get through those treatments and continue to be healthy, to keep fighting?
I think the biggest inspiration for me was that I had 4 children, and that I said to myself, I don't have time to be sick. So this just has to get in line with everything else on my to-do chart. And that's how I dealt with it. That was my way of dealing with it. I wanted to be here to see my children grow, to watch them get married, to have grandchildren. And I wanted to continue to live a full life. And if it meant that I had to struggle with these treatments and struggle through whatever was handed to me, then I did that because I wanted life.
You're not the first person I've heard say it was their kids that kept them moving it forward, but and I want to talk a little bit about your kids and a little bit more about things like symptoms, but we need to take a break, Jean. So so everybody stay close, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Jean Shipos, and we're talking about ovarian cancer. And, Jean, I'm curious, how old are your kids now?
My youngest is 38. And my oldest is 48.
Oh, my goodness. Doesn't that freak you out?
Yes. But I just had a new baby this week. So we have 6 grandchildren, and our latest was born Tuesday.
Oh, congratulations. That's fun.
Thank you. Yes, it's a true joy. It really is.
Yeah, everybody who's a grandmother says that.
Yeah.
Or a grandparent says that. How did your kids deal with your cancer?
I think each of them dealt differently. My youngest daughter is my rock. She's the note keeper, and she's the follows up, and she gets an idea in her head, and she just sticks to it and says, this is what we're going to do, and this is, how we're going to follow up, and this is who we're going to see, and these are the calls that have to be made. And you need somebody like that, I think, in your life, because, at least I did, because when you go to the doctor, you sort of blank out.
Sure.
They tell you all these things, and you get to a point where I don't want to hear it anymore. And I can't make sense of it. I'm not processing because this is happening to me, and I can't deal with what you're telling me. So you need somebody who's your advocate, who will sit there and take the notes and tell you afterwards what you didn't hear, and tell you how, what you have to do and next steps you have to take.
Jean, I think that's true. I think it's true in any case when you go to the doctor because it's what you're saying. You're not focused on, all the detailed stuff. You're trying to process what the doctor's telling you. And if you have somebody who's taken notes and can repeat it back to you later that night after you've processed and maybe are a little bit more focused and calmed down, I don't think it's anything. It's even for like ovarian cancer or things that are as serious as ovarian cancer. I think sometimes even if it's just like I had a rotator cuff repaired, and it was really important that my spouse was there saying, no, the doctor said this. No, the doctor said you can't do this, or the doctor said you can do this, because I was focused on what was happening with my shoulder.
Right, and the pain you're in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think it's disbelief, like, cancer? What? Cancer? Me? Cancer? And does this end your life? Does this mean your life's over? Does this mean there's an end date? You just don't put things together.
And I don't even know how anybody processes that. It's in the sense of, well, when you think about the treatment, and that's, well, is there? And I know people who have done this where they've said, I don't know if it's even worth having the treatment. Like they're sort of like trying to mentally prepare themselves to die. Right. And I think at some point sometimes you get to that place. But now I'm taking it that you never got to that place, right?
No.
That's good. What are some of the, Jean, if we talk about breast cancer, we know that if we do a breast self-exam and the doctor does it at our regular GYN, there's a lump that you can feel a lump. And different other things that you say, well, there's this or that. What are some of those symptoms that you talked about a little bit? You didn't feel you were sick to your stomach, your periods had gotten longer.
Right. Obsessive bleeding, swelling in the pelvic area. Many times a woman who is in good health otherwise and on a good diet all of a sudden can't fit into her pants and is buying bigger sizes for no apparent reason. A lot of swelling, usually aching in the pelvic area or lower back, pain. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. I remember Fran Drescher, who had cervical cancer, talking about that she just kept, in her case, she kept going to doctor after doctor, and they said, well, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. And she just had that feeling something was, and she just kept pursuing it. But, there aren't any screening tests for ovarian cancer. Are there any that are reliable?
No, there's no reliable tests. I often advocate for the CA-125,
right,
which is a blood test, but many doctors will not support that because if you are ovulating, it will give you a high count, so it's a false negative. So most doctors will say there's no good one screening test. The thing to do is if you have those symptoms for a week or more, and I would not let it go for 2 weeks, a week or more, get into a gynecologist and continue to pressure for tests, for a CAT scan, for an ultrasound, for blood work, but continue to pressure. You have to make sure that you take care of yourself and that you care for yourself enough to do that.
Do doctors sort of use that? Oh, it's really nothing. Do they do that?
I haven't found that. I think doctors are much more educated these days, especially when it comes to ovarian cancer. And I personally haven't found that, especially with the groups that I go out and speak to so frequently. But I do find that women have to advocate for themselves, and they have to say, I'm not satisfied with this diagnosis. Let's go see somebody else. Let's go see a surgical oncologist, and just to make sure. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and Jean, I had a friend who died of ovarian cancer, and she was misdiagnosed and mistreated twice. They knew it was cancer, apparently. And she was treated for cancer once, and I remember we had a big party at the end of that treatment that she had finished her chemo treatment and whatever, and then shortly thereafter, symptoms came back and she was treated a second time, but they never treated it for ovarian. It was never treated properly. So by the time they diagnosed it as ovarian, she had been through, all the treatment, and she was done. It was awful. Is there any chance that there is a proper screening? Is anything being developed, or? I
know there's research going on, but nothing yet that will pinpoint. There's more research in treatment than in screening, and I think screening is where it's at for me, because the whole key to treating this is getting it early. And unfortunately, because we don't pay attention to our bodies and we let it go for so long, unfortunately, many women are diagnosed late stage, like 3 or 4. And that's difficult. That's intense.
It is, Jean, and it makes me feel angry that there's no screening test. And I don't understand. It's something I don't understand. How is it that you can't come up with a screening test if it's a cancer and you know it? There must be some signs that the doctor, that the doctor could look at in some kind of a screening test, because we'd get our pap smears and stuff like that. But what do you think is holding that up? Why? And you're right. Why that it doesn't make sense to focus? So it does make sense to focus on treatment, but if you get it early, in your circles, and you're really involved in those circles, what do people say?
Right now the big focus is on treatment. That's what they say. The research is how do we treat, and there's big focus on genetics to prevent through genetics. Like if you get your genetic testing, then that will be an immediate indicator of what you should do next.
Well, there are a couple things I want to ask you about. I read that birth control pills, if you take them for 5 years, that lessens the risk of ovarian cancer. Is that true?
Yes, I've heard that. Yes, I've seen that study. They do say that.
Of course, the rub is that they aren't good for other parts of your body, but...
I know. And I've also, what my oncologist just recently told me, for my particular cancer, which is slow growing, there aren't a lot of treatments and there aren't a lot of chemotherapy treatments. For me, the newest train of thought is hormone blocking therapy, which is a hormone blocking pill, which is probably what
does that mean?
The pills are.
So what does I don't understand what that means.
That I would take pills probably daily to block estrogen, to block normal hormone reproduction in my system. Because the hormones they have found, recent studies have found that the hormones feed the cancer cell growth.
I can understand that, but now if you're you are a midlife and I'm a midlife, but we're not making estrogen like we used to. So would they still give that to you?
Yes, that's what they're looking for. Yeah, I had a full hysterectomy, and that's the therapy that they want. That's the next therapy we're looking at.
Oh my goodness.
The next great, the next big and great.
So now, Jean, we're hearing all these commercials about talcum powder, and that using talcum powder like years ago, that causes ovarian cancer. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm part of a class action suit. I was contacted immediately by somebody from one of the law firms who, after that first big award, and she said, did you by any chance use talcum powder? I said, use it. I swam in it. Are you kidding?
Wow.
I went through that stuff like it was candy. And who knew at that time? And since then they've changed, of course, the contents and what it's made of. But yes, I was a big user.
Wow. So for any of the listeners out there who were like that, pay attention. If you have any of those symptoms, Jean's telling you, go to the doctor and be persistent. Am I right, Jean?
Absolutely.
Jean, we need to take another break, but I want to talk about, when we come back, I want to talk about what you did with that part of what you can do, what you have done to make this be different for you and for other women. So, and Jean calls it the TLT, and I can't wait for her to tell you about it. So everybody hang in there with us. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour.
Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there.
Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly. I'm here with Jean Shipos, who is an ovarian cancer survivor, and we're talking about things that you can do to take some charge of your health. And Jean, I wanted to ask you this. Is there any prevention things? Is there like a diet and exercise thing? Or, in diet and exercise is what they tell you for everything, but is there anything in particular?
There really is, and I really don't know how true this is, but this is what I've been told by my oncologists and by experts in the field. First of all, diet is very important. We know diet impacts all parts of our lives, but apparently cutting out sugar from your diet is very important. And apparently the more you work on weight reduction, which my doctor's been after me for, I can't even tell you how long, the more it's just, I don't know if it's a losing cause or what.
I hear you, Jean.
But apparently the heavier you are, the more prone you are to breast cancer and gynecological cancers.
That just doesn't seem fair.
I know it.
Because, it's not, when Joseph and I go on a diet together, we did this one time. We went on the diet called the Whole30. I was faithful to it, and Joseph wasn't. At the end of the month, I lost a pound or two. He lost 20 pounds.
Don't you hate them?
I do.
I do that all the time. Yep.
Jean, you have done something wonderful with this terrible thing that happened in your life, and it's called the TLT. Could you tell my listeners what that is?
Sure. When I first was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, probably I would say close to my 5-year mark, my youngest daughter, my rock, Nicole, said, I want to do something special. I want to do something special so that other women don't have to go through what you're going through. And I want to contribute to something that makes a difference because nobody's heard of ovarian cancer. Think 20 years back. Nobody knows what this is. Everybody knows about pink and about breast cancer, but who knows about ovarian cancer?
And it really was it was really Gilda Radner who really started to put that focus, right?
Exactly. Gilda and her husband. Her husband, Jean, who just recently passed also. So we became involved with the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, NOC, which is a national organization focused on ovarian cancer awareness. And for 2 years, we focused on fundraising for that particular organization, raising money for them, participating in the annual walk. And we watched that walk grow. The first year, I think maybe there were 3 teams. And we watched that walk grow over the years as people became more and more aware of ovarian cancer. And then we decided, well, let's take this one step further. What's the next logical step? And we decided that forming a foundation, our own foundation, would be the best way to go. So with my family and friends, we formed the Teal T Foundation in 2008, and we came by the name because our very first fundraiser was a tea party. This is so lovely. It was just, we were picturing a little intimate tea party. And
I've been to your TLT, so I know how funny that is.
Yeah, where we worked at Educational Testing Service, my friends and I and my relatives. ETS said, well, you can use our cafeteria. And I said, oh, fine. That'll be plenty big. Never dreaming that we would sell out the cafeteria with 300 seats.
Wow. Wow.
So that's how we started. And one of the girls, Lauren Quick, who helped me start, said, why don't we name it Teal Tea, because this is our biggest fundraiser. This is what we're going to be known for. And teal is the color that represents ovarian cancer. So we became the Teal Tea Foundation. And our focus is research and awareness. That was something we felt very strongly about. We not only want to promote awareness, we want to promote research so truly women have a chance fighting this disease. They have a better chance than they do now.
I think that's just so awesome, Jean. That, I mean, you're continuing to survive because this is such an important thing you do. Not that you're not a good person and everything, but this TLT that you do is just it. And you've raised $150,000, right?
Yes. We raised about $150,000, which we've donated to research, and another $150,000, which we've used for awareness. We pass out bookmarks with the symptoms on them. Mm-hmm. We pass out jelly bracelets, anything that's teal and in a ribbon, we make it and pass it out, just so people are aware. So they'll look at a pen and say, now, why does it say Teal Tea Foundation? What do you think that is?
And one of the things I really like, and it was what just bowled me over so much when I went to the TLT, this was back in 2010, that you focus on research and you focus on all of that, but you really provide solace for not just the person who has ovarian cancer, but for their families. I was surprised at how many family members were there.
It's devastating. When you're around it as long as I've been, it's devastating. These people become your best friends. They become your family. And you see them fight. You see their families fight. And I often think I would be there. If I had fast-growing cancer, I would be in their shoes. And I'm here because God gave me slow-growing cancer. I don't know if that's a blessing, but that's what he gave me. And I'm watching my friends lose their battle. And we just want to impact that. We want that to stop.
Well, here's the one thing that I want all my listeners to know, because it was the thing that just flipped my brain around when I went. I went in dressed for business. I figured it was going to be this businessy kind of an event, and you were saying that when you first had it, you thought it was going to be like a nice little tea, teacups and stuff. Oh my goodness, Jean, I was shocked, because you have people, they get whole tables and people decorate their own table, right?
Yes. We have a theme. We have a theme each year. I forget what this year's theme is, but it has to do with the psychedelic age, and a groovy end to ovarian cancer, something like that. And we have a theme, and we have table captains. And each table captain decorates his or her table. I have male table captains, too, who do wonderful jobs. Mm-hmm. And they decorate their tables. And then we have a competition to see who has the best table.
Yep.
And it's really, oh, gosh, it transforms the room. And it's so beautiful. And the ideas, oh, my goodness, the ideas are crazy.
And joyful. I just remember being so bowled over by the fact that, well, first of all, it was just crazy. The whole thing was just like so crazy fun, and the tables different. Everybody's out to top everybody else with their table, so that makes it really fun. And there was a parade. Do you still have a parade?
Yes, we have a parade of hats for somebody who wears the best hat. And they parade around the room, and everybody votes for the person with the best hat. And a lot of the hats are homemade. You know, they're cute as can be. Or they have to do with the theme, so they're really cute.
It was neat, and I came to the TLT to present the Victory Crystal to you, and we couldn't get everybody to stop talking long. It was such a joyful event. Everybody was having such a good time.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It was really a neat thing.
That's the goal, I think, to promote that there are people who understand what you've been through or are going through. And if you ever need anybody, just reach out because we're here.
And I remember talking to a man whose spouse had passed away not that long ago, before this time. And I was a little bit surprised that he was there because I don't know that I just think that he would have been, not that he wasn't grieving, but I don't know that I could have been around ovarian cancer and all of that close to when my loved one passed. But he had it was like his family.
Right.
And that was where he was getting comfort and solace.
Right.
Yeah. You do a beautiful thing there, Gina. It's just a wonderful event. And
thank you so much.
Tell my listeners how they can find out more about the TLT, and you're always looking for volunteers and sponsors.
Absolutely. We're always looking for volunteers. You don't have to volunteer all year round. You can volunteer by event. We have many, many events. We're a fully volunteer organization. Nobody's paid. We don't have a physical space, so we don't have a huge overhead. And you can find us on TEAL, TEAL, TEA.org. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. We're on Twitter. And I hope my VP of Public Relations appreciates that I remembered that. Because I don't even know what Twitter is, for God's sake.
You're funny, Jean. Well, Jean, I posted that link on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com, and I put a link also to the Ovarian Cancer Foundation. It's the big ovarian cancer link that I know that you reference also.
Okay.
Jean, I wish you like the best of luck. I hope to see you at a Toastmaster event sometime soon.
Thank you, Annmarie. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming.
I hope that today's show reaches out to women and that women will take care of themselves.
I do too, Jean. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Victory Chicks and you guys, what are you doing this weekend? I'm having good friends over. I was at a party last night for one of my neighbors who's leaving and moving to Hershey's Mill, and having friends for dinner, and then I'm sort of crashing on Sunday. But, and listen, it's National Coffee Day, and Wawa has free coffee today, so make sure you go get some. And I guess you can get it till midnight, so make sure you go. And there are still tickets available for my special event on October 12th at the Pyramid Club. It's the Pyramid Club author event. The rate is still for a couple more days at $12. So I posted a link to that on the radio wrap-up. Now, before we leave, here's something I want to talk with you about. We've been meeting like this for 4 years now, and I feel like I want to shift the format to do something a little bit different. And since you're all so good to join me on Friday afternoons, I'm wondering, what would you like? Would you like more guests on the show, or fewer guests, or more chit-chat, or more opportunities to call in, or more guys joining me? That could be fun, huh? I'll have to see if Art Roman can join us some days. You know Art Roman from the Kitchen Workshop in Paoli? He's so fun. And if you've never been to one of his events, and he usually runs them through the Chester County Night School, you're missing a good time. He'd be a fun guest. Something else that I've been thinking about doing is using Facebook or Twitter for questions. Like if you didn't want to call during the show, but you had a question for my guest, then you could post the question for the guest on Facebook or Twitter. So, what else would you like? Let me know. You can go to victoriouswoman.com. I'll find the radio wrap-up for this show. It's on the sidebar on the right-hand side of the homepage. Post a comment. Just click on that link. Click on the radio wrap-up, and then post a comment. Or you can send me an email at annmarie@victoriouswoman.com. I found today's quote on one of the ovarian cancer teal sites, and but I wanted something that would be a good fit for all of us, and I thought this was a great one. The quote is this: "My strength did not come from lifting weights. My strength came from lifting myself back up after I was knocked down." You know, by midlife, we've been knocked down a couple of times and we got back up, so that's where your strength comes. Take that into the next week with you. And come back with me next Friday at the Friday Happy Hour. Have a victorious weekend. Jen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.